So I want you to imagine something for a second.
Yeah.
Imagine you've been tasked with building the most impenetrable, high-stakes vault in the world.
Okay. Setting the scene. I like it.
Right. And you spare absolutely no expense. I mean, you install biometric scanners, you've got seismic sensors, foot-thick titanium walls to protect whatever is inside.
Basically the ultimate safe.
Exactly. But then, just days after you finish it, a group of casual internet hobbyists just wanders right into the center of the vault.
Wait, they just wander in? Like no explosives?
Nope. They didn't blow the doors off. They literally just walked in through a side maintenance hatch. And why? Because somebody forgot to put a padlock on it.
Oh, man. I mean, it sounds completely absurd when you put it in physical terms like that.
Right.
But if you translate that to the digital world, it is the exact reality the tech industry is grappling with right now.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We're looking at a breaking Bloomberg television report today, and it is currently sending shockwaves through, well, the highest levels of government and the entire AI industry.
Yeah, it's a huge story.
The subject is Anthropic's unreleased AI model. It's known as Mythos. And our mission for you today is to figure out how a piece of technology can be so profoundly capable that it literally keeps the Pentagon up at night,
Right.
while simultaneously being structurally vulnerable enough to be cracked by, people just hanging out on a Discord server.
The contrast there is just jarring. You have this cutting-edge, potentially civilization-altering technology, but it's housed within a digital infrastructure that, well, it suffers from some very basic, very human oversights.
Yeah, oversights is one word for it. Let's target the capabilities of Mythos just to, set the stakes for everyone.
Sure.
Because according to the Bloomberg documentation, Anthropic itself has acknowledged that Mythos is powerful enough to enable dangerous cyber attacks.
Which is terrifying.
Exactly. We are way beyond chatbots that just, write emails or summarize your PDFs. We're talking about an AI that intrinsically understands the architecture of digital systems, like well enough to identify flaws and potentially exploit them.
And when a tool has that kind of offensive capability, I mean, the immediate assumption is that the security around it would be military grade.
You would think.
Right. If there were a breach, you'd expect it to be the work of, I don't know, highly sophisticated state-sponsored hacking syndicate.
Yeah, like out of a movie.
Exactly. You imagine massive server farms, zero-day exploits, and months of covert infiltration.
But the Bloomberg reporting reveals a totally different picture. A small group of unauthorized users successfully gained access to Mythos. And get this, they coordinated the whole thing through casual conversations on Discord.
It's just crazy.
And for anyone unfamiliar, Discord is a platform that was initially built for gamers.
Right, for voice chat while playing games.
Yeah, but it's evolved into this massive hub where tech communities, developers, and, hobbyists gather. They have voice and text channels to share code snippets and collaborate in real time.
It basically acts as a massive decentralized think tank. And according to the reporting, these users, they didn't deploy some groundbreaking new hacking tool. No, they simply followed digital breadcrumbs. They used paths that had been previously identified for finding untested models, just to get an early look at Mythos before its official rollout.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
Because it's like teenagers sneaking into a top-secret military hangar,
Yeah.
not to steal the fighter jet, but just because they like aviation and wanted to sit in the cockpit. Can we really trust that this was just innocent curiosity when the technology involved is this dangerous?
What's fascinating here is analyzing that stark contrast. You have the catastrophic potential of the Mythos model, which could literally orchestrate cyber attacks, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the incredibly mundane way it was compromised. I mean, Discord chats and reused network exploits.
Wait, I need to stop you there for a second because following digital breadcrumbs sounds a bit like, I don't know, magic. What does that actually look like on a technical level?
Sure, it's not magic at all.
Like, are they just sitting at their keyboards guessing passwords until they get in?
Not guessing passwords, but guessing pathways.
Yeah.
So when tech companies are developing a new product, they often set up temporary testing environments on their servers.
Right.
Think of it like a construction site for a digital building. And because these sites are meant for internal testing, developers sometimes use really predictable web addresses.
Oh, like testing-model-v2.anthropic.com or something.
Exactly like that. And if a company doesn't aggressively lock down the authentication for that specific pathway, anyone who guesses or discovers that address can interact with the server.
Wow.
Yeah, they find an exposed connection point, and suddenly they're communicating directly with an unreleased AI.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
And the justification these users gave is really fascinating. A person familiar with the matter told Bloomberg that they weren't trying to, quote, wreak havoc.
Right.
They described themselves as AI hobbyists. They were just trying to game out what future models might do. They really just wanted a sneak peek.
Which is honestly a very common mentality in these online communities. There's a pervasive culture of digital exploration.
Just poking around.
Yeah. Finding a vulnerability is often seen as a puzzle to be solved rather than a weapon to be used.
But isn't there a massive difference between, like, a teenager poking around an exposed test server out of curiosity and a malicious actor trying to steal the underlying model?
Of course.
I mean, or use it to attack an infrastructure grid. Are we perhaps overreacting to what is essentially just a benign trespassing event?
I understand that perspective, but the intent of the person who found the hole doesn't change the size of the hole.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. If a hobbyist can map out an unlatched side door using open source tools and Discord chats, it proves the vulnerability exists.
Yeah, it's out there.
Exactly. A nation-state adversary isn't going to stop and ask permission. They're going to walk through that exact same door. And unlike the hobbyists, they won't brag about it in a chat room.
Definitely not.
It shatters the illusion of airtight security that these big tech companies rely on to maintain public and governmental trust.
And that structural vulnerability leads us right into, honestly, the most bizarre twist in this entire narrative. And it involves the United States government.
Yeah, this part is wild.
Because before this Discord breach even hit the news, the Pentagon had already slapped Anthropic with a supply chain risk label.
Right, which is huge.
But the reason for that label was entirely counterintuitive.
Yeah, historically, when the Department of Defense uses the phrase supply chain risk, they're usually talking about physical hardware.
Like microchips.
Exactly, or deeply embedded software flaws. They're worried about chips manufactured overseas that might have hardware backdoors, or networking routers built by foreign companies that could siphon off data.
So it's usually a fear of deliberate malicious tampering.
Yes, exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Bloomberg details that the Pentagon's original problem with Anthropic wasn't about insecure hardware at all. It was actually because Anthropic was being too strict.
Yeah, it's so ironic.
The company was aggressively insisting on incredibly tight safety guardrails for how their AI could be utilized.
Well, from the corporate perspective, they were just trying to be responsible. I mean, they don't want their technology generating code for malware, right?
Obviously not.
Or assisting in the creation of biological weapons. But if you are the Pentagon and you are evaluating a new technology for national defense, you cannot have a private tech company dictating your operational parameters.
Right. You can't have a Silicon Valley server deciding in the middle of a conflict whether a military request violates its corporate terms of service.
Precisely. The military viewed those restrictive safety policies as an operational bottleneck. To them, the fact that Anthropic could just pull the plug or refuse a prompt was a literal supply chain risk to their own capabilities.
But then the narrative violently pivots. Enter Mel Michael.
Right, the Pentagon official.
Yeah, one of the top Pentagon officials actively negotiating with Anthropic. The reporting notes that Michael recently pointed to a previous breach at Anthropic, one disclosed just a few weeks prior to this Discord incident, as a totally different kind of supply chain risk.
So we shift from the military saying, your rules are too restrictive for us to use your product, to saying, your servers are too insecure for us to trust your product.
The irony is incredible. On one hand, you have Anthropic making the U.S. military furious by acting like a strict, unyielding parent, basically saying, we have to police how you use this because it's too dangerous.
Right.
And simultaneously, they are structurally vulnerable enough to suffer multiple breaches by casual hobbyists. How does a company police the U.S. military's use of its AI while failing to police its own digital backdoors?
It forces us to confront a major blind spot in how the industry approaches AI development. Right now, there is a massive fixation on what we can call philosophical safety.
Philosophical safety.
Yeah, this is the behavioral conditioning of the model. Companies spend billions of dollars and countless compute hours trying to ensure the AI won't say anything offensive or won't help you build a bomb.
They're essentially trying to teach the AI to be a good citizen.
Yes. But in the rush to ensure that philosophical safety, there seems to be a dangerous neglect of infrastructural safety.
And what's that exactly?
Infrastructural safety is just traditional cybersecurity. It's securing the physical and digital servers, managing the access credentials, and ensuring network ports are actually closed.
Ah, okay. If I could use an analogy here, Like having the secret recipe for Coca-Cola, right?
Sure.
You can lock that recipe inside a philosophically safe, heavily guarded vault, but eventually you have to build a pipeline to transport the actual soda from the vault to the bottling plant.
Right.
If someone figures out how to tap into that pipeline from the outside, it really doesn't matter how thick the vault walls are.
That is exactly the dynamic. You can have the most aligned, rule-abiding AI in the world, but if the server it lives on can be queried via an exposed testing environment by kids on Discord,
Yeah.
your philosophical guardrails are completely bypassed.
Because of that leaky pipeline, the U.S. government has realized they can't just sit back and complain about corporate guardrails anymore. They are actively scrambling to get their hands on the technology.
They want in.
Yeah, Washington isn't observing from the sidelines. They are demanding official access to Mythos. They want to run this AI against their own agencies to discover network vulnerabilities before someone else does.
It's a huge transition. We're moving from a theoretical policy debate to a matter of urgent tactical defense. The government understands that to build a shield, they first need to intimately understand the weapon.
And the sheer panic is reflected in the guest list of a major meeting that took place just last week.
Oh, the attendees were fascinating.
Yeah, according to Bloomberg, the list included White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Cyber Director Sean Cairncross, Treasury Secretary Scott Besser, and Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei.
That is a heavy-hitting room.
Right. You don't get the Chief of Staff, the Head of National Cyber Defense, and the Treasury Secretary into the same room with the tech CEO unless the threat level is astronomical.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, looking at those specific attendees tells you exactly what the government's threat models are. I mean, Sean Cairncross is there for the obvious infrastructural defense.
Makes sense.
And Susie Wiles brings the direct political weight and authority of the Oval Office to force cooperation.
But Treasury Secretary Scott Besser being there is what caught my eye. Like, why is the Treasury involved in an AI software breach?
Because if you have an AI that is explicitly capable of identifying flaws in digital architecture and writing cyber attacks, the global financial system is one of the most vulnerable and lucrative targets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we are talking about the potential for automated attacks on clearinghouses, the disruption of algorithmic trading, or just the freezing of bank transactions entirely. The Treasury isn't there to discuss technology, they are there to discuss the potential for macroeconomic paralysis.
That meeting provides such vital context for a very stark political shift we are seeing from the president. And as we look at these developments, it's important to just impartially report the facts of how the administration's stance has rapidly evolved.
It's been a very quick pivot.
Extremely quick. Just a month ago, the president officially declared Anthropic a supply chain risk and threatens a total freeze-out, like they were going to cut the company off from all government business entirely.
Right.
But recently, during a CNBC interview, the president adopted a completely different tone, stating that, quote, maybe there is a way we can work some things out.
Going from a threat of total federal blacklisting to a public willingness to work things out is a complete reversal in a matter of weeks.
So why the sudden change of heart from the highest levels of government? Why abandon the regulatory stick?
It comes down to a fundamental loss of leverage.
How?
Well, a month ago, the administration believed they were negotiating with a company that held a secure, highly controlled asset. In that scenario, threatening to pull government contracts is a massive piece of leverage. You know, play by our rules, allow us access, or lose billions in federal funding.
Ah, I see. But the moment Mythos is breached, that dynamic completely collapses.
Completely. Once unauthorized users prove they can slip in through a back channel, the technology is no longer safely locked away. It is out in the wild, at least to some degree.
Right.
The government suddenly realizes that a regulatory freeze-out doesn't punish the company so much as it blinds the military. You cannot boycott a vulnerability.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
If the model is leaking, the government needs immediate access to figure out how to defend against it. The willingness to negotiate on CNBC is born out of the sobering realization that the U.S. might already be playing catch-up.
Which brings us to the most alarming unknown in this entire report. We know that a handful of publicly identified tech companies and major banks have official access to Mythos. And now we know that a group of internet hobbyists managed to secure unauthorized access. So what does this all mean?
It's a scary thought.
If someone can slip into Anthropic's servers using Discord chats and exposed test environments, It raises an immediate question about the digital safety we all rely on.
Absolutely.
I mean, the banking apps on your phone, the healthcare portals holding your medical records, the regional power grids. If an AI capable of designing next-generation cyber attacks is floating around in unauthorized hands, who else is sitting in the dark quietly utilizing this technology?
This raises an important question about containment. Can any private company truly contain a technology of this magnitude once it exists on a server? The Bloomberg report specifically raises the specter of foreign adversaries, naming China as a potential concern.
Right.
And this is where the difference in operational security between a hobbyist and a nation-state becomes terrifying.
Because we only know about the hobbyists because they were somewhat noisy, like they talked about it on a public-facing platform, or their methods left obvious digital footprints that Anthropic eventually detected.
Exactly. But a state-sponsored intelligence agency operates on an entirely different paradigm.
Yeah.
They have dedicated teams whose sole job is to find those unlatched digital doors and slip inside without triggering a single alarm.
And how exactly do they do that silently?
They might use a zero-day exploit.
Which is what exactly?
It's a software flaw so unknown to the original developers that they have had 0 days to build a patch for it.
I see.
Or they might rely on social engineering. So they don't attack the server directly. They target an employee. They trick a developer into handing over an API key.
Okay, an API key. Break that down for us.
An API key is essentially a digital VIP pass. If you possess it, the server assumes you are authorized to be there, and it won't flag your activity as an intrusion at all.
So an adversary could quietly copy the architecture they need, secure their persisting access, and leave absolutely no trace.
None. And it fundamentally challenges the entire concept of secure AI. Is secure AI actually an oxymoron?
It really seems like it might be.
We are constructing these digital titans, imbuing them with the ability to understand and dismantle our technical infrastructure, and then trusting them to centralized servers maintained by human beings.
Human beings who make mistakes.
Exactly, who reuse passwords and forget to lock testing environments. The historical precedent of cybersecurity is very clear. Every centralized database, no matter how well-funded or heavily guarded, eventually experiences a leak.
Yeah.
The assumption that a private company can permanently contain a technology of this magnitude once it is connected to the internet is incredibly optimistic.
Looking at the full scope of what we've covered today, the journey is just staggering. It starts with a Discord server where a few hobbyists follow digital breadcrumbs into an exposed test environment for one of the most powerful AI models on Earth.
Yep.
That mundane breach immediately collides with the Pentagon's internal crisis, where they were initially treating Anthropic's corporate safety rules as a supply chain risk, only to realize the real risk was the company's leaky infrastructure.
And that realization triggers panic in Washington. It leads to high-stakes meetings with the chief of staff and the Treasury Secretary, and it forces the president to completely walk back threats of a federal freeze-out just to secure emergency access to the technology.
And looming over all of this is the silent, unanswered question of whether foreign adversaries have already copied the keys to the kingdom. But as we wrap up our analysis of this Bloomberg report, there is one final implication we haven't touched on yet, something for you to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
Right now, there is a fierce, ongoing war of ideology in the tech sector. On one side, you have the advocates for open-source AI. These are people who believe these models should be freely available for anyone to download, inspect, and modify. On the other side, you have the proponents of closed-source AI. These are companies arguing that these models are far too dangerous for the public and must be locked down tight on proprietary servers.
It is the defining debate of the current technological era, for sure.
But if the companies building the most advanced, civilization-altering AI models in the world cannot even keep a handful of casual internet hobbyists out of their networks, perhaps that entire philosophical debate is irrelevant.
Oh, wow.
Because if we accept that every closed system inevitably leaks through basic infrastructural flaws, whether it's an exposed test site, a stolen API key, or a zero-day exploit, then the future of AI won't be decided by the executives trying to lock the technology in a vault. The future will be decided by the hackers who simply walk through the unlatched maintenance hatch and let it out.
That is a chilling thought. Ultimately, the vault is only as formidable as the hinges on its weakest door.
And judging by the events of the last few weeks, those hinges are looking pretty fragile. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.